Everybody get up, it's time to slam now. We got the real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam. It's your chance, do your dance at the Space Jam. Alright.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. Today, we are going to slam and we are going to jam. It is that time. It is the time for the Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden episode. It's been a long time coming. And I am joined, as always, by Billy Hoops Rothert.
Don't call me that. I've really never been basketball affiliated. Nor am I the son of a former basketball player. Well, actually, I kind of. My dad played ball back when it was shorty shorts and white men. That's about all I have.
And that baritone you hear is Peter Monstar Busby.
Oh, heck yes. Heck, I'll rep Team Monstars all day and all night. I think all 4 years I did intramurals, my team name was the Monstars.
Of course.
I need to just pause for a second. Pete's vocal tone is not baritone at all.
Is it bass? Is it even lower?
Yes.
I thought baritone was the lowest for voices. Bass is lower? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'm sorry I insulted your voice.
It's okay. So, I mean, I have basketball facts on basketball facts, but let's start with an original one, an OG basketball fact. So when Dr. James Naismith invented the game, he actually couldn't come up with the idea to cut a hole in the peach basket. There's actually a little girl watching the games who suggested it to him, oddly enough. Before that, they always had to climb up after every point and take it out with a ladder.
Which really both says something about how ineffectual offense used to be, that was practical. They just scored so infrequently that was a thing that...
Yeah, okay, climb up.
Yeah, we score 3 times a game. So 3 times we get the ladder out, and that's all we have to do.
Like soccer.
Exactly.
James Naismith was also Canadian, interestingly enough.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Just a maple leaf tattoo right on his shoulder. That's not true.
It was on his forehead.
So, for Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, I figured a good place to start before we discuss the game itself. Billy, why don't you tell me what basketball facts you learned from playing Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden?
Do you have a newfound appreciation for the game?
Yes. Let's start. What facts did you have coming into it, and what did you leave with?
All right, so everything I learned about basketball, I learned from Space Jam.
Okay.
Okay, you're basically there then.
Yeah, you're halfway.
So I know that Michael Jordan is a famous baseball player who
infamous perhaps, but sure.
Who decided to chill with the Looney Tunes cast and dunk on Danny DeVito.
It's not Danny DeVito.
It's not Danny DeVito.
It's Newman.
It's
I
Newman
forget
from
his name,
Seinfeld.
but it's Newman.
No,
he's a man. He has...
No. Newman is on Michael Jordan's team, but like Danny DeVito is the Monstars.
He's the voice of the... right.
He's the voice of the...
okay, well, he never gets
the voice of the evil guy.
dunked on, does he?
Yeah, at the end, he throws
metaphorically
down on him.
speaking.
Yeah, they put him in a rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what else I know about basketball? 5 people play on a team, they're on the court per team. You shoot this little orange thing into a ring thing, and then your points go up.
Yep.
Okay.
That's about all I got.
That's close.
Okay, great. And so, leaving the game, how did you feel? What do you know about basketball now?
I know that it's not a game, but a way of life.
Ball is life, yeah.
Okay, great.
100% accurate.
So step 1, ball is life.
Yep.
Okay.
And then also Vince Carter was a cyborg the whole time.
Possibly. Yes.
Yeah. He was half man, half amazing. The amazing half was robot.
Let's see. Yeah, I learned that. Let's see. Bill Cosby is haunting the streets of New York.
Spoilers come in the second half.
Yeah, it's fucking weird, man.
Yeah, that reference didn't age well.
So you did no, it did not. So if you have any corrections or clarifications or feedback on Billy's interpretation of basketball as a sport, go ahead and send your commentary to @DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, or deeplistenspod. Wait, no, deeplistens.libsyn.com. Got it right. Our comment section. I needed to plug that, but what?
Just because it's one of my favorite trivia questions, and Billy, if you want to weigh in as well, but I don't think you'll have
your
answer.
Oh, I'll have an answer.
Do you know the 5 players in Space Jam who lost their talent?
Yes.
Hang on. Wait. Let me try first.
Okay.
Hang on. I know Muggsy Bogues was one.
Bogues, yep.
All right. Hang on. Sean.
Ooh.
Somebody.
Yeah.
Bradley.
Sean Bradley.
Okay.
You hit the tallest and the shortest member so far. An interesting bookend.
Oh, hang on. Was Sean the white one?
Yes. Sean Bradley was.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying not to be an insensitive asshole about this, but
he was very much so.
Hang on. Well, yeah, Charles Barkley was one.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so that's 3.
Remember the sarcophagi.
Patrick.
Okay. You're already doing better than I expected.
Patrick Ewing.
Oh, yeah. See, I know their first names pretty well.
And you're short one. Probably the least famous, I would say, of all 5.
Yeah.
I'm trying to replay the scenes in my head.
You're not going to recognize the guy.
No. Like the names, because
also a very famous running back at one point.
Sean was the guy who laid on the couch.
Yep.
And then Muggsy was the little guy.
Yeah.
It was Charles, obviously, and then Patrick. I remember Patrick's scene because he was one of the first people. I think he was the first person to actually lose his Monstar powers.
Talent. Yeah.
Gino, jump in. Help a guy out.
Oh. It's not Charles Oakley.
No.
It's very much not Charles Oakley.
No. That would have been an interesting choice on the part.
Just whoops, we got this one guy who just punches people. Damn it, it's a power forward, but I don't remember who the hell he is now, unfortunately.
Larry Johnson.
Fucking Larry Johnson.
Right? There's no reason to remember Larry Johnson besides Space Jam.
I mean, he was good. He just
he was just Larry Johnson.
Was he a multi-time All-Star?
Probably. He was on Space Jam.
I guess.
I think important to note, I could not tell you any other facts about these people except their first name, only as the characters they played, which was themselves in a movie that I watched, dozens of times as a kid.
Well, great. So, Billy, as is your role in this podcast, summarize Charles Barkley's Shut Up and Jam Gaiden so we have a place to start our discussion.
All right.
It's Neo New York.
Okay. So here's the deal.
Post-cyber apocalypse.
The story is set in the future. The setting is post-cyber-apocalyptic Neo New York.
Yep.
Basketball is outlawed. Why? Charles Barkley performed a slam dunk so great at a basketball game that it killed everyone in attendance. They named it a chaos dunk. From that moment forward, basketball is outlawed, and there is a government organization designed to hunt and kill all the basketball players and just wipe them from existence.
There was a b-ball purge.
Yeah, it's led by Michael Jordan and
corporate shill.
Charles Barkley is one of the last living b-ball stars. They don't actually say basketball anywhere in this whole game.
No, they don't.
No.
They just say b-ball.
B-ball.
So, Charles Barkley and his son Hoops, spelled with a Z,
of course.
In
the traditional style.
Just live alone in cyber-apocalyptic Neo New York, trying to get by, and all of a sudden, Shit goes down, some other chaos dunk is performed, which kills all of Manhattan. They think it was Charles Barkley. They try to hunt him down. They end up taking his son. Shit gets weird. People start having JRPG abilities. And we make a party. And then we go try to get our son back and then say, who did this chaos dunk? Let's stop these people. This is sort of like the initial motivation of the game. Like from first 5-10 minutes, what happens? It's, oh shit. Chaos dunk is performed again, not by Charles. Who did it, and why are they blaming Charles? Did I actually get it? I feel like I got it.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, and there are other characters that you meet across your journey.
Octoroon, great grandson of LeBron James.
So, I want to, before we get into any real discussion, there's something I feel I need to say. This game was made by basically 3 people. With no hope to ever get paid for it because it is infringing on all of the copyrights.
So many copyrights.
It has lifted art assets. It has music that is lifted. It is the most illegal. So it is amazing that this game exists at all. It's a miracle that it exists, that it's like 4 hours long. It should be 5 minutes for how much how much time and energy of oneself you would have to pour into this to make it work at all. The idea that people did this for months, if not years, to make this exact specific game is staggering. Kudos.
Yeah.
Way to go. You made it. We're going to say some harsh things about the thing you made.
And there are
almost
many
certain.
Yeah, there are many harsh things to be said, but the effort level is clear.
But thank you so much for making it. I can't listen to Billy's summary of this game without laughing a little bit. And that's kudos. Kudos to you. So, if we don't want to get into the story spoilers first, let's talk about the JRPG trappings of this game.
Yeah.
Because for as much as Charles Barkley's Shut Up and Jam Gaiden is an homage to 90s basketball lore, it is also an homage to Japanese role-playing games of the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the joke of just the name, Charles Barkley's Shut Up and Jam, I believe, is an actual video game. That is.
It is.
Real.
It's called Barkley Shut Up and Jam.
Barkley Shut Up and Jam. And Gaiden is Japanese for side story. So Ninja Gaiden is Ninja side story. So they just threw a Gaiden on there to let you know that it's Japanese and it's a little non-canon. However, the game takes everything incredibly seriously.
Well, the very first line of the game, the very first thing you do when you draw on the screen, once you hit new game, there's a warning sign that says, "Warning, this game is canon."
Yes. This is what happened.
Yeah. This will happen.
This game is canon.
This is going to happen.
And from the moment you boot the game up, it is immediately lampooning JRPGs from the title screen. If you hit the title screen, on top of just like the picture of Charles Barkley dunking and the cyber dwarf and everything that's going on that title screen, the quote says, "You don't need a reason to help people." That's just taken from Final Fantasy IX. That's the main character's quote on the title screen when you start Final Fantasy IX. It
actually cycles through a couple of them.
Yeah, but that one is the first one, and it is just lifted. The other ones are actually quotes that they came up with. That one is not. If you go into the menu, there is an option to have... There are 2 options for languages.
There is an option.
There's English
and Albed,
which is a made-up language from Final Fantasy X that is in it. I tried to start the game in Albed. And they did. I mean, it's just a character replace.
I can actually read a little bit of Albed.
You son of a...
I played Final Fantasy X enough that I was like, you know what? I'm going to just not have to look this up every time I want to read something, and I just got pretty good at reading Albed.
I just know that we is you.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was a real language in some obscure country I've never heard of.
Nope, it's a character replace thing. So, like, one vowel is replaced with another vowel, so... Coding it is wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah, you just have to plug in the replacements.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
this game starts off with a bang. It had me at the menu screen, but then you have to play it.
I start every game at the menu screen.
Most
I've said
people
this
do.
before, said it again, or I should say at the options screen. Because I always want to see what options the game gives you. You know, can you change your XY axis controls? Can you make text go faster or slower? Can you do what, you know? I like games giving you that option. So
Yeah,
I saw that. It was good.
And then once you actually start to play the game, it is a mixture of just kind of walking around on some 2D backgrounds in traditional JRPG style. You know, think Final Fantasy of the like NES and Super NES era, and then occasionally you run into not random battles. They're battles you can see on the screen. Think like Chrono Trigger, and that's how the game pretty much plays out. You go into a turn-based combat system. Your characters are standing on the right, the enemies are standing on the left, and you hit each other till they die. You hit them till they die, and you pick from a couple. It's actually surprisingly not deep, ambitious, I should say, because deep implies that they succeeded in creating depth. I think that they gave you an impressive amount of options considering how simple I thought the game would be. Like, to perform an attack with Charles Barkley, you pick between one of 3 attacks, either a jump shot, a pass, or a free throw, and each of those different attacks requires you to perform a tiny, like, mini game or a QuickTime event to perform the attack properly. So you have to press up on the D-pad to make him jump for a jump shot, and then you have to press a direction to have him actually shoot. Or
No, it's you press up and then you release for the jump shot, but you can have him do up forward for a forward jump shot or up back for a fadeaway. And they have different statuses based on what you do.
Using the terminology.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
so-
always had him do forward jump shots. What was
So if you do regular jump shot, nothing happens, and it's medium damage jump shot. Forward jump shot is heavy damage jump shot, but you are left vulnerable. Like you take like 30% more damage on your next turn, and then fadeaway jumper deals less damage, but you have like 30% guard during the next, like until your next turn. So I would frequently use the fadeaway jumper as like the last hit on an enemy because it was low damage and it played defense on Charles, who I statted to be one of my tanks.
Okay.
On the line.
I didn't notice that. So what you're saying is there's way more depth than even I thought there was.
I mean, yeah, you're just bad at JRPGs and didn't know, so it's okay.
Yeah, there's an interesting array of battle mechanics, but I don't know, it didn't seem like there was much of an option in terms of who you like styling your characters. Like you could focus on, you know, basically turn one person into a mage, other person into attackers, but I don't know, while the combat mechanics and sort of just like button inputs were interesting, I didn't think there was enough to diversify the skill sets of individual characters.
Yeah, the game you basically are locked into however many levels you can get. There's a finite number of enemies in the world.
Yeah.
Just in total. So it's not like you can really grind levels or anything or spec people in a specific direction. Like Baltheos will always be your magic user.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one who has a lot of magic attacks, so it makes sense to make him the magic person. Charles Barkley, almost all of his moves are physical attacks, so it doesn't really make sense to spec him towards magic.
Yep.
And then the other 2 characters you end up with, they kind of they're more physical attackers as well, so it kind of makes sense to have one magic person.
They have like secondary uses too. There's like a trope, like as many of the party lineup tropes as possible are represented here.
Yeah, you have attacker in
Barkley.
Charles, you have mage in Baltheos, you have speed in Hoops, like a thief,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have kind of defender / healer in the cyber dwarf.
Yeah.
Which is I love having to say that.
And the magic is Zorbs?
Zaubers.
Is that a reference I'm not picking up on?
I don't know. Nope. Okay. I didn't know what the hell that was.
Fans or listeners, if you know what Zaubers are, hit up the podcast.
They're lethal, apparently.
Yeah, they're killer.
So once there's the regular attacks, you've got the few every character has like 2 or 3 regular attacks they can do,
Right.
with a surprising level of complexity in the combinations. And then you also have magic attacks, which take up, is it VP is health, and then
No, it's like FP or BP for like ball.
BP,
like
BP.
Baller points. I think it's baller points.
So you use your baller points to use your magics, like Charles Barkley's double team. He turns into 2 Charles Barkleys, and then
they bamboozle him from all angles.
yes, they bamboozle from all
You
angles.
get bamboozled,
and they hit real hard. So those magics never miss, and they tend to do much better damage than your regular attacks. So my play pattern was generally kill the regular enemies with regular attacks for the entire dungeon, because you can get sneak attacks on enemies if you run into them from the side or from behind.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And so other than like 1 or 2 dungeons, I found that I was just getting advantage on every battle. What did you guys think? Same thing?
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, especially with the final boss, I was a little disappointed by the difficulty. I never felt like it was particularly hard, and like I said, especially for the final boss, to defeat any of these enemies.
Yeah, I basically saved all of my BP for boss fights, and then I would unload until I had no more BP, and by then either the boss was dead or like 1 or 2 more attacks took them out.
Yeah, there's really no. And I mean, you can. Here's another game where money just doesn't really matter at a certain point, and
it's hard out there for Neo Shekels, though.
It is. You're hard up on those Neo. You got to give them out a lot too. Everybody's asking for Neo Shekels.
Yeah, but at a certain point, you just have so many Neo Shekels that
you just buy whatever you want.
You can buy all the healing items, and there are healing items like a chicken fry that revives everyone, heals everyone to full HP, and cures everyone's baller points, and removes all status effects. So basically, it resets your party, and it costs like nothing.
Chicken fries are good.
Chicken fry and chicken dew.
Basketball shards.
Basketball tears were my
Sorry, B-ball shards.
Excuse me. You're right. You're right. I should use the lingo.
B-ball tears were the best.
What the fuck was this game?
It was a lot of things. So
all right,
we should
a couple more things I want to praise this game about mechanically was they gave us an in-world dash, which is something that I always appreciate.
And it shows up a little Nike shoe when you're
right.
running.
Things didn't wear Nikes, did he?
I don't know.
No, he wore Reebok.
You guys know what fucking shoes he wore? God
yeah, man, he has real famous commercials. He's not a role model. I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna look up
for later.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, I like the fight system was fine. I think it was not anything particularly unique or groundbreaking, but for 3 guys in a basement or whatever who made this game being on par with any other JRPG combat system, props. Gino said it, kudos, cool. Dash in the world was good, and I would say like a very fleshed out item system. It was definitely fleshed out. There was no half-assing about it, no half-assing about the like random encounters, enemy types,
there was
physical,
nice
magical. There was like good variety. It was very fleshed out. It was not one-dimensional. And that's about all the good things I can say about this game. So I just want to make sure that I could get it out there first so that anyone who listens doesn't say that I just shit on it the whole time. It had some silver linings.
They definitely attempted to have buffs and debuffs matter. I just found that raw damage kind of made it not matter so much.
Yeah,
but
really. Honestly, I don't even... And we're going to get to the reprehensible names of these status effects, I'm sure.
Yes.
But honestly, by the end of the game, I didn't even really know what most of them did.
I kept getting
some of them
Montezuma's
actually
revenge,
do
but
nothing.
I forgot what it did.
Like, I know diabetes is basically like a poison effect.
It's poison.
Yeah, but that's the only one I know offhand.
I believe I apologize to everyone who's listening who has not played this game.
We can start jumping
before.
into this.
Yeah.
So this is the part that I definitely found the most uncomfortable, because this game, a lot of it is in jokes, very clearly, that the developers found funny, and if they thought it was funny, it just kind of made it, because you don't have an editor when you're making a game that costs nothing and you'll never sell. So some of the jokes, like the status effects, are diabetes, Parkinson's, Asperger's, which, as we learned in our To the Moon podcast.
Is on
That's
the
not what
autism
they call it
spectrum.
anymore.
Really? What is it called?
It's on
Autism
the autism
spectrum
spectrum.
disorders.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's not a separate.
Which was a
diagnosis
very
anymore.
controversial decision when they decided to take Asperger's out of the DSM. But if you didn't know that, listen to that podcast. It was a good one.
Exactly. And so
And
then there's
glaucoma.
Glaucoma and Montezuma's Revenge was one of them.
Yep.
And I think there might have been one or two other ones that went away. Fouled, I believe, was a
Yeah.
Handy capable.
success. Handy capable. That one was. Yeah. So if you can't tell from the tone in our voice, like that was not super fun. Like there's an entire section where diabetes is just kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You didn't see it, I don't think, Billy.
What
Wilford Brimley makes an appearance, which,
Yes.
you know,
What's worse is some of these status effects do nothing, and the one that. So I guess I have to say this. This is something that's very important to know: is that I actually did not finish this game. Parts of it, like this part made me kind of mad. I was kind of offended by this stuff. Plus, I did not get any of the basketball humor, so it just went right over my head. And the game itself was just not that impressive.
It's rudimentary.
It's yeah. So I found myself. I was like, I'm just wasting my time. I don't like playing this game. It's kind of offending me, and so I'm just gonna quit. I got more than halfway through though. So I feel like I can have an intellectual discussion about what this game is, but the part that probably pushed me over the edge and made me quit was that I found out that the status effect Asperger's syndrome actually does nothing to your character. There's no positive or negative effect. It only changes their sprite animation to making funny faces and doing weird motions. And the item that cures it is alcohol. And that combination just was like, this is really fucked up and stupid. I don't want to participate in this anymore. So
Yeah.
I stopped playing the game.
Yeah, when it was that and your character, it says as a status effect, Asperger's, the status effect causes you to be it says social awkwardness. And then in combat, you just kind of like dance around and make weird motions. And I found that really uncomfortable. So I cured that every time immediately just so I didn't have to see it anymore. And then every time they got, what was the other one? Parkinson's, the cure was Flintstones vitamins.
yeah.
Which not so great. And then the cure all was tobacco. So you could use cigarettes to cure any ailment.
Yeah. I mean, even all these sort of items, right? The fact that, in sort of one of the laziest stereotypes there is, that sort of chicken fry is the most effective healing item. And even sort of neo shekels as a currency
Yes.
carries its own negative. I don't know how to phrase this. It's reprehensible in its own right.
There are racial connotations and ethnic
Yes,
connotations
obviously.
to that. And the game kind of throws them around all over the place. And this game strikes a really weird tone between its jokes and the dire seriousness with which it handles everything. Because the world is crazy, but Charles Barkley is this straight man in it, and it is told with the just utmost seriousness that anything that is happening, no matter how ridiculous, is direly serious. And so I don't know what to make of these diseases being in there as just kind of a joke.
Yeah, I mean,
when they're trying to get you to take seriously Hoops Barkley and his journey.
yeah, and Charles Barkley is a widower who's just trying to save his son's life.
Yeah.
It's a dark story in a lot of ways.
I felt like I would be actually really in for the story if not for those other things kind of pulling me out of it. Because for as ridiculous as the whole setup is, there is some actual human emotion that they are trying to cause this Charles Barkley character to have.
Yeah.
That I think is like, why does he care? Why is this not just all lunacy? But no, they're like, no, Charles Barkley, he has damn integrity, and he's going to take this is life or death in Neo, New York, in this post-cyberpocalypse. Baltheos is going to take the Octoroon great-grandson of LeBron James.
Another
I'm pretty sure
completely
that's not a
reprehensible
phrase.
thing.
That's not cool.
No, not at all.
Ugh. So I think something before we get into the story stuff we should probably just mention the art. I said that it's all lifted pretty much from other games, or some of it is actually put together. But I found the art to be great. That was a big plus for me.
Yeah. I especially liked when they used actual photos of the NBA players where available.
Yes.
That was a nice touch.
I enjoyed that very much. I enjoyed the attention to detail on pixelating all of the pictures that they used for the character portraits. And these couple of times where there are character changes, they changed the character portrait appropriately. Like if someone was bleeding, there would be blood on them. I thought that was a nice touch.
It was kind of like MS Paint speckles. There was a time where very early in the game, Larry Bird, spoiler, gets killed. First scene of the game. And instead of changing his character model at all, like they just kind of like did MS Paint red dots around him. Kind of like a Wolfenstein or like a Doom kind of game.
He was bloody. He was hurt.
He was MS Painty.
But I enjoyed the animations for what they were, as janky as they were. I liked that, oddly enough, like the character models as you fought against enemies,
they weren't bad.
Bits would fly off of them and stay off.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a level of attention to detail that I would not have expected. Like when you fight mechanized Gatorade and a cog flies off of it, that cog doesn't come back. Or the Slam Spectre, and it throws a basketball at you.
Yeah, I lose it.
And they lose it. I thought that was nice.
And the weaponry changes, which I thought was a nice touch too, depending on what you equip.
Yeah.
There were also, which I liked, is that there were, small and they didn't really seem to do much, but there were forks in the games. There were decision nodes where you had to make a call, like, all right, am I going to do this or do this? And you can only sort of do one at a time.
Yep.
True.
And somehow in this game that was devoid of a lot of art and time and all that stuff, to have branching paths that people might never ever see.
Yeah.
They added replayability to this thing in a weird
I don't
way.
think they really did that. Like,
I mean, they tried.
I don't think it's really true because, okay, and I can't speak that much because I honestly didn't get all the way.
You didn't unlock the after game stuff.
I experienced 2 or 3 of these forks, and if I had to guess, I think it'd be like a like a Telltale game where you think you're making really big choices, but you inevitably have to get back on the main path.
Oh, I'm not saying that this is going to change the world or anything.
Yeah,
I'm saying that there were like 10 locations in this entire game, and the idea that they made a different texture pack for an 11th location that you might never go to is kind of amazing to me.
Yeah, okay, now that makes sense.
Like, you have maybe 20 tile sets in this whole game, maybe 30, and you decided to add an additional one. That's work you didn't have to do. Way to go. You did it. Thank you. Thank you for your effort. I applaud it. Also worth mentioning, the music in this game is incredible, mostly because it has the Space Jam theme.
Yes, I will agree. It
was
has
pretty sweet.
Like an 8-bit remix of the Space Jam theme.
I think it's just the Space Jam theme. I think they just take it.
No, they take the vocals and they overlay some 8-bit mixing.
Okay.
Do they use Time Keeps on Slippin'? I don't think I noticed that one.
I don't think so. No, it's just the Space Jam theme.
Yeah, I like that one too. The training montage.
Then there's a weird vocal. There's some singing in some boss fights.
Yeah.
Their boss music is really weird. I don't know who made that, but it's pretty great. It's appropriately bad.
Most of the menu select as you shift from one option to another option is like the sound of a basketball dribbling.
Yep.
Just these tiny touches.
As you cycle through your episodes, it's like bing, 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 like a basketball hitting like
Have you ever
freshly
heard
waxed
basketball being dribbled?
Oh yeah.
You're using ping? I've never heard a basketball ping.
I was going for more of like a PANG, like a pang kind of thing.
I've never heard one pang either.
All right, I'm hearing the sound in my head like really, really strongly, but now that I think of it, I think you're right. I think like like gym class dodgeball to the face.
That's a pang.
That's
That's
definitely a pang.
Yeah.
A thunk? Is it a thunk?
It's definitely not a
Thump.
I don't think it's a thunk.
You know where we could hear this sound? In Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden.
Or in a basketball gym.
Yep, also. I could get a ball right now and then bounce it against my wall.
There's one in my
That would be
closet,
bad.
yeah. I think it's
No.
That would be bad.
No.
But another thing worth mentioning, there are QuickTime events in this game.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, we totally glossed over that one.
There are QuickTime events. You fail two and you lose,
You get a game over screen.
and then you get a game over screen of a single tear falling down on Charles Barkley and then falling down his face. But he doesn't cry it. It falls on him and then falls off.
I failed a bunch of those, too.
And then it says Kurt Cobain on the bottom. Of
Yeah,
the
I didn't
game
really
screen, which is
get
fucked
that.
up also.
Yeah. A lot of weirdness in this game.
Yes.
There were some things that I said, look, you had an option to go one way in the design of this game. You could have been totally fine.
Yep.
Like if they had just like a very specific like basketball
said-
reference, like
if it
let's
said
well,
Eris. If it said Eris on there.
yeah.
Or like
Fine.
John Stockton or something.
Yeah, John Stockton.
If
Karl
it said
Malone.
if it said Eris or something that was cool.
Do you know Karl Malone's like something like 11th on the all-time steals list?
Just through sheer time.
I imagine so. Doesn't that sound crazy high?
Yeah, I didn't think of him as having, bear claws for hands.
Right? Stockton's number one by a wide margin.
Well, if you're healthy for 20 years of playing high-level basketball.
Stockton.
So one thing that I could have said, like, hey, look, if you wanted to put status effects in this game, you could have made them funny basketball or athletic references, not real life health.
Like a pulled hamstring or something?
Tendinitis.
Yeah.
Like, oh man,
Bursitis.
tendinitis is MAME, or paralysis could be like torn ACL, or
Tough actin, tenactin.
oh, you get like poison effect. Oh, athlete's foot, like
What if-
poison.
what if
you
you
know,
get... What
jock
if it was,
itch?
It was tough actin, tenactin you had to use to cure your athlete's foot.
That could have
There
been
you
way cool and funny, because that's something that singles out no particular group or mental disability. Like,
Yeah, you're not going to get any complaints here. I found that
We're on the
really
same
off-putting,
page.
and that almost made me stop playing the game as well. Honestly, this game is pretty front-loaded in terms of things I enjoyed versus things I did not enjoy. I pretty much didn't like the back half of the game until the final boss fight, when I started liking it a whole lot.
yeah.
I-
So we can move on, I think, more into the story stuff.
Yeah.
that's probably
so
time for it.
spoilers from here on out. We're not going to break this up into two podcasts because you should play this game if you care. It's free. Like, if we're spoiling it, what are we even ruining?
I think
Or don't play
Yeah.
it. It's your choice. I think you should, just to know.
And it's short. You can bang
It's
it out.
short.
So
it's free. It's like 4 hours long.
minor. This is barely a spoiler, but this is minor tech. So the save screens, or like the save mechanic,
yeah,
give
that's
these
great.
long ass speeches. How many did you get through before you said, "Screw it, I'm not reading this"?
I read all of them.
You read, you lunatic.
I read every one that I encountered. I can't say I read all of them because
Lunatics.
I loved the gas. One, I don't know why the save point's a gas pump,
Yeah, that's well.
but I'll take it.
Sure.
The diesel, I don't know. But they were intricately written to sound exactly like a JRPG fan on a internet forum in the 90s. And it's, as someone who moderates an internet forum, it is staggering how many weird ticks they managed to pick off of people who would get very upset about these very topics. It's incredible.
Yeah, I said screw it after like half of the first one.
Oh, it was incredible. There was one where it said, VidCon, there's one where it lists like the top 6 things that every video game, which they call VidCons, need in order to be great, and each one of them is just like pitch. It needs swords. It needs magic.
it needs a boss soundtrack.
It needs a soundtrack, and
It
everyone knows
needs a dating level. Like
the greatest soundtrack ever written was Yasunori Mitsuda's Chrono Cross.
not that Nobuo Uematsu wasn't also great, but Chrono Cross, hands down, best sound. Like,
And if you do not weep when listening to it, you are less than human, fully human.
And you Westerners obviously can't appreciate...
You Gaijin. I'm sorry I said that. I'm sorry I said that. But you guys don't understand.
Every time I walk to a save point, I didn't see a save point in my head. I saw an otaku on like a chocobo high horse
with a Naruto headband on.
With a Naruto headband pointing his Murasama at all of us and saying like, belittle you fools, you Western fools.
See, I think this is my version of the basketball jokes. Like, the basketball jokes went over Billy's head. I didn't really pick up or understand the gas pump jokes. Yeah.
So I was the Venn diagram here.
Yeah, you're the interlocking parts of this team up, Gino.
Great, as I always knew.
You're like that very incredibly small subset that is the perfect target audience for this game.
Exactly, which is why this game actually worked for me more often than it didn't. But when it really didn't, it was like, ugh.
Yeah, it really didn't.
It really didn't. But the gas pump, like, there's one of the speeches is on, okay, now let's talk about hentai vidcons. So
they're like, it's a legitimate genre, guys.
It's a legitimate genre, and everyone who says that this is misogynist or wrong or pedophilic, they just don't understand the depth and the quality of the writing in Little Sister Rape Simulator 7 Gaiden. They just don't understand. They don't get it. But it's subtext. And it's like, well, that's really specific. That's really specific. And those are comments that probably get deleted. Probably delete those. But yes,
taking a step back.
They were so long. Every one of them was so long.
There were probably 8 to 12 screens of text before you could even have the option of saving your game.
It was incredible.
Take a step back. I think that's one of the more positive aspects of this game, because it does shine a light onto the disgusting underbelly of otaku culture.
It does. And I think did you guys go to the B-ball dimension?
Of course I went to the B-ball dimension. And I kicked the shit out of Kevin.
I probably missed... No, I stopped at the Spalding factory.
Oh, well, if you go to the B-ball dimension, which is a dimension with basketball players, and then there's a giant Spalding JPEG that you're walking on top of. And in the B-ball dimension, the pump is not that same voice. It's actually a commenter responding to that guy, calling him an asshole. So it's like the pumps in the regular world are all this otaku voice, and then the pump in the b-ball dimension is another commenter on some other forum, on the same forum, telling him that he's full of shit. I thought it was a nice touch. Like, the b-ball dimension has different gas pumps.
Kevin Garnett is a gladiator too. Is a super pissed off gladiator at Charles Barkley was a great choice.
I never played.
You didn't fight Kevin Garnett?
I didn't fight Kevin Garnett. Because I was at the end of the game, and right before the final boss, it tells you haven't gone to the b-ball dimension. You should probably go to the b-ball dimension.
There's also
like, okay, fine.
Yeah, there's also a raising a basketball mini game or whatever. It's not even a mini game.
What?
But like you can
in the b-ball dimension?
Yeah, and you can like scale their stats based on what you feed it and how you train it. So I burnt so much money because I thought Charles Barkley was going to get this basketball. He doesn't. You don't get shit. I spent like 8,000 Neo shekels on this fucking basketball.
Was it a cool basketball? Did it walk around?
Sucked.
Did it love
Nothing
you?
happened.
Did it love you when you were done?
Well, I'm sure it loved me, but I had no in-game expression of that love.
Oh, okay, that's pretty great.
That's some good shit. That's an actual good part of this game. I mean,
yes.
Even if Pete's mad that he did not get an in-game reward, which I'm sure you might have, Pete, if you actually statted it right. That's kind of what normally happens when these kind of things happen before. I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I didn't play the game. But a lot of times when this scenario occurs in other games like it.
Having not played the game, let me tell you, you probably did it wrong.
I'm just saying that I've played other games where this has happened, where you have some kind of like pet that you feed. And Gino can bag me. He's probably played 10 times more games like this than I have.
I've seen you feed your mag.
Yeah.
You know.
And so, like, usually if you get, like, some particular min-max stat combination of, like, I'm so happy that I'm going to do something for you, like give you some item or give you some stat buff or do something with you.
I've raised a chow before.
I don't.
I've bred chocobos.
I raced.
I mean, I've done it in Chrono Trigger, but I don't think this was like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This game would totally just make a thing to sink your money into.
Yeah.
Like, I found a gun called the Final Gun.
Yeah.
And I gave it to a gun aficionado.
Yeah, and you just get like a sticker.
And he gives you a sticker that he hand drew.
Dick.
What an asshole.
I
could
did
have
that.
sold it to Square Enix Goya, which I love that touch. I love that Square Enix is somehow... They merged with Goya, the bean company, and became the evil future corporation in Neo, New York.
I like putting Jordan as like the member of the new basketball police was a nice touch too.
Yeah, I think let's talk about the specific characters where they took NBA players and decided to use them. So Jordan as the sellout, I think, was perfect.
Yeah.
What was his quote about shoes?
I was going to bring it up. Republicans buy shoes too was basically it.
Yeah.
When
so
somebody
that was
asked him why he isn't more, somebody asked him why he wasn't more sort of politically active, like sort of challenging the man.
I don't
the status
fucking
quo.
understand
Said,
any of this.
Republicans buy shoes too.
None of that shit made sense to me at all.
Well, it's because Michael Jordan is known for... I mean, he's not like a bad dude. He's just known to not be...
He's very brand aware, I would say.
Yes.
Like he's very sort of corporately inclined.
Yeah.
I actually heard Charles Barkley say in an interview that Michael Jordan gave Charles Barkley ridiculously good financial advice that set Charles up for, a very comfortable future.
I believe it.
Because Michael Jordan, besides being a basketball player and athlete, was heavy into investing. And whenever he got some sort of endorsement deal, he's like, no, I'm going to take stock options, please. No paycheck. Let me get those stock options.
At one point, I'm not sure, it probably still is, but at one point, geography was statistically the most lucrative major on average at North Carolina. Just because that was Michael Jordan's major.
Oh, no.
He was such a massive outlier.
That's a pretty good way to do it. So, they used him. They used Larry Bird.
Yep, as
the Sizbeth priest.
Basketball Jesus.
Yep.
Vince Carter.
Half man, half amazing. He's a cyborg. He turns on you.
My favorite player of all time, Dikembe Mutombo.
The ghost of Dikembe Mutombo. You fight him. All of the members of Space... So this game... I don't know if we mentioned, Space Jam is canon in this game. It takes place in a world in which the Space Jam happened.
It was a cataclysmic event for society.
Yes. And Charles Barkley was trapped in that basketball.
Yes.
And his trappedness in the basketball brought about a darkness within the Ultimate B-Ball. And the Ultimate B-Ball, the basketball in which all of those basketball players' basketball energies were trapped, it was a weapon of mass destruction.
In fact, it is also canon in this game that before people realized that was the Ultimate B-Ball, it was like mishandled by like a janitor or something. And he accidentally performed a chaos dunk just by like fumbling. Oh no! Whoops! Dunk!
Yes.
And everyone died.
Yes. So that is Jamicite and Slamicite.
Yep.
That's pretty great. So
there's just so much horse shit in this game.
You go to the tomb of the basketball tombs, the basketball catacombs, I think it was, and you find sarcophagi with all of the members of Space Jam. And Charles Barkley has a surprisingly touching speech for each of them.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Sean Bradley, he talks to Sean Bradley's sarcophagi, and he's like, Sean, when I met you, I had trouble with white people.
Yeah.
But then you were a good basketball player, Sean, but you were a better man. And you made me better. You helped me get over my phobias. You helped me get over my hang-ups. And for that, I thank you. And then Sean Bradley's sarcophagus cries a single basketball tear.
Yeah, again, just sort of like the crazy discordance in the tones this game's trying to create.
Yes. It's weird. It's really weird. And then you fight Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant.
That was good, too. I was glad we got to fight Kobe.
There was no Shaq, though.
No,
yeah, there was. There was Shazam.
Did you get to the Kazam? Did you get to the Goblin?
Yeah, Kazam.
Not Goblin. It was like dwarfs and genies.
Yes, I found that.
Yeah, so if you do all the way to the genies, they give you a lamp, and you can summon Shaquille O'Neal as the Kazam genie.
Oh.
Wish.
No, I favored the dwarves, and that got me the Shrek-mono, a kimono with Shrek on it. It was the best defensive item.
Yeah. Shaq will give you like a stat buffer. You get +5 in all categories to all party members.
Oh, that's really good.
That is really good, yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. There's a whole bunch of other weirdness. What was the next weird thing that jumped out to you guys?
Well, there's also, if you go to the basketball dimension, did you do the dating simulator?
No.
There's a dating simulator in the basketball dimension, and Cyber Dwarf goes on a date with a WNBA player whose name now escapes me. I'm sorry to say.
Joanna Man?
No, Joanna Man is in the game, though.
Joanna Man is not a real person. That is a character was that a Chris Tucker?
No, it wasn't Chris Tucker.
No idea.
I mean, I've seen the movie, I think, multiple times.
Joanna Man is about a basketball player who is like a college phenom, but he couldn't make the NBA, so he
was in the NBA, but he got kicked out. For
being an asshole.
Situation, yeah.
And then he cross-dressed and played in the WNBA and became a WNBA All-Star.
Yep. So in this game, he's Charles Barkley. I guess should I say she? I think in the game, she's a woman.
Yes.
And she's Charles Barkley's love interest. Or sort of reluctant. He's not that interested as a woman.
There's a lot of weird characters.
A lot of weirdness. I mean, we didn't even mention the animal-human hybrids in the sewers.
Yeah, that was a section I wanted to talk about in depth.
Well, lay it on me, man.
That moment I found to be the most earnest and poignant, other than the early moments when Charles Barkley is walking around destroyed New York to, just saying that I did this.
Yeah.
Like when he has a flashback to what New York looked like before he unleashed the Chaos Dunk.
Chaos dunked it into oblivion.
I felt that was surprisingly poignant, but the moment where you're in the sewers and you meet a bunch of transhumans, like people who want to be,
I would say post-humans.
Post-humans?
Yeah.
They are people who wanted to be something else, and it does not necessarily mean animals. It doesn't necessarily mean people. It could mean anything. There's a really good plastic surgeon, Jay Allard, of Xbox, of Microsoft fame. That is the name of the first Microsoft spokesperson for Xbox. And all of these people, you go to Cesspool X, which is their sewer hideout, and in Cesspool X, it's nothing but they're all animal people. And you meet a turkey man that tries to convince you that, look, we all felt different inside than what our exteriors expressed, and we really wanted to be something more or something different than what we were born as.
Yep.
And so we came down here because we'd rather live in the sewers in this terrible condition than live inauthentic lives.
Yeah.
And Charles Barkley wants none of it.
Weirdly enough, you could also become Charles Barkley. Like, that's one of the available surgeries.
And one of the characters mistakes real protagonist Charles Barkley for a copy, like a duplicate. Yeah. Oh, wow, your Charles Barkley surgery is really good.
You're the best Charles Barkley I've ever seen.
Which echoes a moment from Space Jam, where the children don't believe Charles Barkley is Charles Barkley.
Of course.
Yeah. You're not Charles Barkley, you're just a guy who looks like Charles Barkley.
Wanna be?
And you get to edit some dude's poetry.
Yeah, I loved that.
Oh, man.
Did you guys help that snail out?
Yeah, I did. We got him laid.
Did you get him laid? Okay, you did. Pete, did you?
No, mm-hmm. I botched it. I listened to too much of Vince Carter's suggestions.
Oh no, that was your problem.
You
didn't listen to all of his.
You need to listen.
That was the key. Was to
all
listen
of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
My mistake.
I love that moment. I love it so because when you're talking to her for the interview, so a person who wanted to be a snail, is in love with a woman who wanted to be a fox, but she's not a fox. She's a kitsune. It's very different. She has two tails. She's a Japanese mystical fox.
And so tossing it out there because we're on the subject, foxes, very popular, I'll say, persona in the fairy community.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Good to know. Well, this snail's into it, and he writes a poem, and his poem's shitty, and Balthios, the intellectual that he is, says, we can't do this to this guy. We need to come up with better poetry. So interview the fox to find out what she likes. She's like, I like living here with all these people because they're like me. Yay! I like living here because even though the food's bad, I get to be myself. Hooray! I like the forests. And she seemed really shallow and kind of dumb. So I figured that Vince Carter just kind of blurting out exactly the things she told you would be the right way to reach her heart instead of Balthios' flowery-ass language. And I enjoyed how few shits Charles Barkley gave for it, for the whole engagement. Unfortunately, the snail Zauber was the best Zauber for almost 90% of the game.
Yeah.
Gives you a Zauber? What was it?
Snail Zauber.
Does it just like summon snails or something?
It boosts, so you get a spell that like boosts your defense a whole bunch, and then you get a huge defense bonus for Balthios, which, considering he has very low health, is useful.
Yeah, it is useful.
Also,
but the attack goes really slowly.
And that's really good because you make it stronger by mashing the button.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Fuck!
Dude, you didn't know anything about this game.
I didn't do that ever.
Shit, I played this game so much, and I didn't even beat it, and I feel like I know more about this game than you do. Balthios' standard attack is his best attack by far because if the more you mash it, the bigger his projectile grows before it hits the person. So Snail Zapper was hands down the best because he had physical attack damage and magical attack damage.
I just thought that it was guaranteed damage, so I just took it because I'm like, oh, this is better than his physical's doing.
You were probably only getting 40% of his max DPS out of that shit.
There's also the move Dikembe gives you early on. Probably Barkley's best move too.
Yeah, the Holy Dunk.
The Holy Dunk, yeah.
Which I love that he has the Holy Dunk and the Chaos Dunk. So what other? I guess there were a bunch of I almost never used the Cyber Dwarf's finishing move.
No,
the Cyber Dwarf.
The suplexes and stuff.
Yeah, I never used those
they're
because
just
they didn't do damage.
Yeah.
But the Cyber Dwarf, he's a dwarf with basketball skin.
Yeah.
And he's disfigured, and he tells you about how terrible it is to be a dwarf with basketball skin, and how he is forshamed.
But he finds love.
Appearance.
He finds love in the B-ball zone.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, good for him.
Yep.
He needs that.
He does.
So what did you guys think of Cesspool X? Because I found, that was a moment where I was saying, Charles Barkley's kind of a dick in this game.
Kind of, but also, I think it was one of the most well-made levels that actually accomplished everything that it wanted to accomplish in a way that was elegant. I think all the other levels were just kind of like, insert trope here, make basketball joke there. And then this was the most JRPG part of the game, as opposed to shitty basketball joke part of the game. And so it did that pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to make a Charles Barkley game, he has to be kind of a dick. That's just sort of who Charles Barkley
you don't
is.
get bamboozled from all angles with just any combo finisher.
Yeah, man.
Which, I guess, this might be as good a time as any. Billy, I want to put you through a little exercise because you have not played. You don't know Charles Barkley that well. Correct?
That's not true because I actually followed Charles Barkley's journey to try to become a golfer very closely. I don't think you guys realize this, but Charles Barkley has one of the most unique golf swings.
I 100% realize that.
The most unique golf students that I've ever witnessed. So, as somebody that I studied,
is that what you call it?
Studied pretty closely.
Does he still have that weird hitch?
Yes.
At the top of the downswing?
Yeah. He swears that he does not realize that it's happening. It's completely unconscious.
For 2 seconds. How could he not realize?
A good that's like him trying to do a free throw and just doing I don't know. I can't think of any basketball analogy that makes sense. I don't know shit about basketball, but I don't know, man.
Just deer in the headlights for.
It's deer in the headlights for
seconds.
a good 3 or 4 seconds sometimes.
Do you think part of it's because Jordan's really good at basketball and is in Charles' head now? Not basketball. Well, he's really good at basketball, but he's really good at golf too.
Maybe that's why he doesn't like Steph Curry that much, because Steph Curry's really good at golf also.
Curry's good at golf?
Yeah. Apparently he mastered a drive remarkably quickly. Weird that this guy who's perfected shooting.
Fuck Curry.
Yep. Turns out he has a really good nervous system.
I'm sick of Draymond shit too.
So I was thinking that I would present you with quotes that are either from Charles Barkley from the game or actual Charles Barkley to see if you could differentiate the two. Do you feel confident in your ability to do so?
Yes, this is a throwback to the Halo discussion. Is this from a shitty action Hollywood film, or is this from Halo?
Props to you. You put the team on your back for the Halo discussion. Just shout out to that again.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Boy,
So
I'm gonna fuck it up.
Is this Charles Barkley or Charles Barkley?
Pete, I need you on this one.
All right, let's see if I can jump in. I might have
Okay.
to. Yeah.
Sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel is a train.
Oof. Tough one
Okay,
out of
so
the gate.
this is either Gaiden Barkley or real Barkley.
Or real Barkley.
Okay, I'm gonna
But
go.
it's all canon, so.
So it's all real Barkley.
I'm gonna go with real Barkley on this one.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it. You got that one. My family got all over me because they said Bush is only for rich people. Then I reminded them, hey, I'm rich.
I'm also gonna go with real Barkley here.
Yep.
Oh
Accurate.
God, damn it!
It's called survival of the fittest. If you can't slam with the rest, then jam. If you can't slam with the best, then jam with the rest.
Wait, can I have it again? Because you kind of stuttered there.
Yeah, okay. It's called survival of the fittest. If you can't slam with the best, then jam with the rest.
Gaiden Barkley.
Yeah, that's
Yep,
goddamn.
you got that one.
Oh God.
I remember that one. That was a good quote.
The main thing to do is relax and let your talent do the work.
Oh boy. I'm gonna go with real Barkley.
Oh, you're crushing it so
Oh
far.
my God.
I am B-ball.
Well, it has B-ball in it, so it's gotta be Gaiden Barkley.
Yes, that's true.
I wouldn't have put that past. That could have been real Barkley, though. I wouldn't have been surprised.
But that breaks all the NBA rules and regulations.
I think there's one good quote in the game where it's like every basketball dribbling across the infinite expanse of the universe, like I am all of them. I feel everyone. And then
That's where I pulled that quote.
is that where he says I am B-ball?
Yes. These are my new shoes. They're good shoes. They won't make you rich like me. They won't make you rebound like me. They definitely won't make you handsome like me. They'll only make you have shoes like me. That's it.
Real Barkley.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
one of his commercials.
No, man. Jesus.
And one more. This is for all the marbles.
God, this is for all the milk duds.
Yes. I don't care what people think. People are stupid.
Oh no. I'm probably gonna say both. This is probably in both Gaiden Barkley and. All right, hang on. I can't cop out. All right, can't cop out. I'm gonna pick one.
Gino, you couldn't toss in like a nice quote about Angola in there or something too. I don't know nothing about no Angola.
Hang on, Gino. Give it to me one more time. One more time.
I don't care what people think. People are stupid.
I gotta go with real Barkley.
You got it.
God,
Ace the test.
fucking did it, boys.
Oh, what a monster!
There weren't a lot of
Oh.
quotes from Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden available on the internet readily.
Jesus. You see, with the other one, like I actually knew like 9 out of 10 action films that you were trying to go for here. Like so, like Jesus.
Yeah, unfortunately there are some of these I just want to. We don't need refs, but I guess white guys need something to do. Charles Barkley. If someone hits you with an object, you should beat the hell out of them.
Charles Barkley.
Actual Charles Barkley. I'm a mad dog whose only concern is winning. And then his most famous quote, I'm not a role model. Just because I dunk a basketball doesn't mean I should raise your kids.
Yep.
Thank you, Charles Barkley.
Jesus, Charles.
You're the only person who this game could have starred.
It's true. It wouldn't have worked nearly as well with anybody else.
With anyone else, which I guess we can go over some of the other moments in the game. You fight Jay Allard, you go to Proto-Neo New York, you fight Bill Cosby, the ghost of Bill Cosby. You fight LeBron James.
Can someone
at some
fucking
point.
explain the Bill Cosby being here?
Yeah.
They thought Bill Cosby was funny.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
That's
that.
it?
Yeah.
That was lame.
Were there any other monster hunts either?
No, not that I could find.
Yeah, I didn't get any.
But I thought that it was funny that his character model looked like Sephiroth. He had long, flowing white hair.
Whose?
Bill Cosby.
Cosby.
Before he's a ghost, he looked like Sephiroth.
Okay.
So that was a weird reference. The cyber dwarves and the genies, with the genies being super racist, I thought that was weird.
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
Did you take the railroad or the ferry?
I took the railroad. I forgot it was Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
That's another sketchy part of the game.
I mean, when you go to the island...
And you fight Sugar.
Yeah, so Billy, at one point, Michael Jordan gives Hoops type 2 diabetes, and then you have to go to the Statue of Liberty to cure it, and the Statue of Liberty has a syringe in its hand instead of a torch.
Great.
And then it becomes an adventure game for a while.
Yeah, which I didn't really mind. I thought the puzzle part in the dude's house was fine. I thought it was okay.
You solve puzzle. You pick up objects and use them on things.
Yeah.
I got a splinter by trying to take some wood, and it was moldy wood.
Yeah. And then Wilford Brimley's some sort of like diabetes, like he's like a diabetes messiah almost. He takes the world's diabetes onto himself.
Yes. He's hooked up to a gigantic insulin machine to keep him alive. He's like a totem, I guess, or something.
Yeah, I guess that works too.
He's like the final boss in Final Fantasy V.
Oh yeah, no, that's
He's
sure.
The final boss of Final Fantasy V is a tree that was full of where they sealed evil spirits until it became nothing but evil spirits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And became sentient. You fight a tree.
Well, it was always sentient.
So what
Your
is
plan thing.
what is left to talk about in this game?
Well, you fight the Diabeastie, which is a giant block of sugar.
Yeah.
And then there's the part where you go through the sugar mines or whatever.
And you can't
have
that was okay. That was a nice little gameplay break too, where you can't get close to the sugar.
Yeah, you have a radiation monitor where if you touch the sugar, you get sugarified.
You die.
And die immediately. Then there's you go to Chichelon's tomb? Is that what that was?
Yeah, something like that.
And people see what they want to see?
Yeah.
And the dwarf sees himself without basketball skin, and
Balthazar sees a bunch of Zalber books.
Balthios sees a bunch of books, and then Charles Barkley sees ink and gold, and he takes
it. But nothing happens.
That's setting up the sequel.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I guess, man.
And Hoops sees nothing because Hoops is the chosen one.
All right. So if we take is it an appropriate moment to take a step back?
Yes.
Can I ask a
I
wider
think
question?
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the final boss at some point
All
because
right.
it's awesome.
Well, I'll ask a wider question sort of about games and sort of borrowing. So in literature, when you borrow something, it's called an illusion, right? So let me give you a famous example. You know T.S. Eliot's poem The Wasteland?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably considered the finest example of modernist poetry ever written. And a lot of it is more or less lifted from other sources. There's Shakespeare, there's a whole bunch of other stuff, right? T.S. Eliot actually has a quote which basically says something like, immature artists borrow or imitate, mature artists steal, right? So there's a lengthy and venerable tradition in literature of what we call illusions. And I don't think that's necessarily the case in video games. I think sort of you can see it in two ways. One, I think people get a lot more upset when you borrow things from games. It becomes, like Gina said, maybe an issue of copyright infringement. And two, when you have illusions, they're not called illusions. I think they're rather dismissively called Easter eggs. I find Easter
Yes.
eggs to be a rather sort of, it's not necessarily pejorative, but I think it's, oh, what's that word? It's diminutive.
Infantilizing.
Yeah, infantilizing is fine. I was going to go diminutives, like Caligula and his little boots. So I think there's an interesting question to ask: why there isn't this tradition of sort of homage, allusion, respectful borrowing, whatever you want to call it, in video games. My answer would be a lack of intellectual tradition. It's a short medium, whereas literature has been around for centuries. But I'd like to hear what you guys think about it.
Billy, you can go first because I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Okay. I can say with confidence that of the three of us, I probably encountered the most Easter eggs, as I am the completionist of the group and go through painstaking lengths to experience everything that the game has to offer.
It's Easter every day for Billy.
Yeah. Side note, I'm also currently playing Dark Souls on the side, and there's a lot of things that are allusions in that game, to other games or other games by the people that made this game. A lot of games allude to earlier games like Zelda or Metroid or Castlevania themes. So anytime I see like some kind of special item in the game that's like the name of something in a Final Fantasy game or the name of something in something, I'm thinking that's there for a reason, and it's there to tip your hat to the forefathers of the games that sort of like paved the way for you to be here. So one example would be there's like a really, really powerful sword in some game, and it's named after Sephiroth's sword.
Masamune, and Masamune is actually named after a famous Japanese swordsmith.
It is. I think there's Masamune and Murasame.
Murasame.
Are like two swordsmith brothers, whatever. There's a really cool story there too about what our sword is made for, but that was put in Final Fantasy as one of its first game video game. My words are just fucking failing me. It shows up for one of the first times in video games there, and then people that have sort of an homage to that will name some kind of sword in their game Masamune as well.
But I think that's just it, right? Like it's not like commentary. It's not sort of a it's a hat tip. It's a wink. It's a nudge. Like, hey, check this out.
So, I would say in games there is much more often reverence inner series reverence instead of inter-series reverence. So you will have Final Fantasy games that reference earlier Final Fantasy games, or you will have Zelda games that reference earlier Zelda games. Like, for example, Majora's Mask takes place in the same location as Ocarina of Time, right?
No.
Or it's the same world but in a different timeline or something?
There's no Hyrule.
The very, very start of the game, you are in Hyrule, and then there's alternate dimension like immediately.
But I mean, they bring all the same characters.
They bring so many things from one world to another.
Yeah.
Like Happy Mask guy is from Ocarina of Time world, and he shows up again.
Tingle.
Tingle.
He's in everything.
Tingle shows up in lots of Zelda. Tingle is the Gilgamesh of Final Fantasy.
He just shows of Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
He shows up everywhere. He's interdimensional.
And I think in Final Fantasy, it is lore that Gilgamesh is the same Gilgamesh in all the games. Right?
Gilgamesh goes from game to game taking weapons from the greatest heroes, and every game he shows up in later on, he will have different weapons. Like, for example, in Final Fantasy V, he has 4 weapons. He has Excalibur, he has Excalibur, which sucks. He has Masamune, and then he has one other sword. When he moves forward, he starts picking up, like, the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII, the iconic sword that Cloud has. Or he has the Gunblade from Final Fantasy VIII. And he starts picking up all of these different weapons. And so it's inner series. It's all references. Like, Final Fantasy IX is nothing but homage, for the most part. It is a lot of homage, I should say. However, you don't get this inter-series kind of referencing because, well, for one thing, mechanically, there are actually patents on some mechanics.
Yeah.
So if someone has a very good mechanical idea, sometimes you cannot take that idea. Like I believe Namco Bandai had a patent on mini games during load screens, so you could not play a mini game during a load screen because they had the patent. I think it was either them or Capcom, but I
think
believe
it was Capcom.
Namco Bandai definitely had the use of, I think, audio cues during training sequences. So if you played a fighting game and you were in a training mode, it couldn't have sounds to tell you when to hit the buttons because they had the patent on that. And it didn't lapse until recently. Actually, no, I think the minigame patent lapsed, but the other one has not. But that kind of weird minutia, where it's a thing that should just be the lexicon, like the language of games that should be shared, is actually kept because of copyright law. And then you also have, if you're going to perform homage, you can't just lift a character whole cloth. You have to do enough to make sure that the intellectual property doesn't overlap in a noticeable way, or else you can get in trouble. Most of these companies are in direct competition with one another in a way that individual authors, you could say that you're in competition with Shakespeare, but a lot of them are, separated by hundreds of years, or if they are if they're contemporaries and in some sort of competition, they're individuals. They might have some sort of friendship. They might be exchanging ideas in a way that unfortunately, game developers don't very often, outside of things like the Game Developers Conference, or things that are set up specifically to foster the exchange of ideas. And so a lot of times you get developers who are with the same company for a very long time, or when they get out of whatever company they're working for, they burn out and they leave the industry. And so that knowledge leaves. And so you're not necessarily building on this established solid ground. You're finding these people who come up, they come up with games, whatever their games were when they grew up. They get to the point where they're making them, and you can see the influence of the games that came from, when they were growing up. For example, in Charles Barkley's Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, you get a lot of games that are referencing 90s, specifically 90s JRPG design. And even though this game came out in, I think, 2007 or 2008, so it could have referenced later games and later design decisions, but it didn't. And whenever that group of developers gets to the point where they kind of age out of the game industry, or the game industry becomes very difficult for them to stay in, they leave, and then the next generation comes up and they reinvent their own wheel instead of building. And so you get this weird churn of knowledge, which I think can both, from a mechanical perspective, like building these games and engines, it's a brain drain that happens consistently, and there's also a cultural heritage that might not necessarily carry forward because the people who made the early games are not there to, be mentors.
Yeah. I mean, all these are some really cogent points you're making, Gino. I just, this is an aspect of the games industry, to paint a monolith, where sort of I feel like the way it's structured is hampering the sort of creative avenues available to game designers. Like if you think about, again, I'm just going to use literary examples, right? You have sort of the pop culture ones. You think of something like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, where you're taking an existing story and adding on to it. But there's also sort of the high art versions, right? There's Grendel. It's a novel that takes Grendel from Beowulf and tells his story. Or there's Wide Sargasso Sea, which is a retelling of Jane Eyre from the perspective of, spoiler alert for Jane Eyre, but screw you if you haven't read Jane Eyre by now, which retells the story of the woman in the attic who sort of starts the fire in the house. And sort of I think there's I'm 100% confident there's a market for some of these sort of retellings of minor characters. We've seen them already. But I think it would be more effective, more interesting, a brighter commentary if you expanded the pool of available people to comment on these other characters. But like you said, with copyright law and sort of the financial incentive involved, that's sort of a pipe dream, really.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely want to talk about in the context of Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, is that we live in a post-Disney world where copyright laws just seem to extend out into infinity. And so there are almost no games where copyright is over. The intellectual property is owned from almost the origin of games. Like no video game is older than Mickey Mouse.
And I imagine it renews as you produce new games.
It can, as long as the companies are active in renewing it. And are still making games in the franchise, which is why franchises never die, because you need to keep that stuff live.
Yeah. That's why they keep making Spider-Man movies. That's
why we can't have Marvel vs. Capcom games anymore.
So when you have this copyright stuff going on, when the copyright and the intellectual property is still owned, and it's not in the common, what is the term? Common use. It's not fair use.
Fair use, yeah.
It's not just in the public domain. That's the one.
Public domain,
in the public domain. Because it's not in the public domain.
Which Happy Birthday just re-entered the public domain. Heads up for you.
Thank goodness.
Right?
Thank goodness, because if I had to hear one more damn Applebee's birthday, I was just gonna burn the place down. With all that stuff still happening, you can't have Grendel if Beowulf is actively being printed and the author's still alive, and he's going to talk shit about you for writing a shitty fanfic. It would be a fanfic. It would be a fan fiction if it wasn't separated by potentially hundreds of years. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
and
fanfic carries with it this pejorative quality.
Yeah, it does.
But
I think that if you wrote if you want to be pejorative about Twilight, people just say, well, that's just a what is it?
50 Shades of Grey.
Twilight they say, well, that's just a Twilight fan fiction.
Yeah.
Even though it's a new work that sold it arguably better than Twilight, or as well or better than what inspired it.
Sure.
But I think with games, it's just so hard when all these companies are still either hustling or dying, and then they are being whatever company owns the IP is very litigious, usually, and very protective of that intellectual property. And so homage is really hard. Whereas a game like Charles Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, that just doesn't give a shit about copyright at all, can say in the credits, music composed by Nobuo Uematsu, and just do that, because that's not true. Yeah. That's just hot lies.
But that's the trade-off you make, is then you have to send out that game for free.
Yeah, you have to send it out for free. You have complete artistic control. You can make your whatever you want it to be. And I bet if Charles Barkley or if some of those people wanted to shut down this game, they could.
Yeah.
Because they're distributing.
They might skirt by on parody law. But I'm not super familiar with. Like, parody's one way you can use copyrighted material.
You can parody things. You can use it in an academic context.
Which this clearly is not.
This is clearly
Shut
not.
Up. This
is canon.
Post-cyberpocalypse.
I looked up a little bit of fair use stuff when I was getting, actually, like the music that we use at the start and ends of these podcasts.
Good idea.
And I got the music from a website called Creative Commons. The artist What Funk is the artist that makes the music that we play, and they said this music can be used for anything, commercial or otherwise. Just take this cool music and use it. But then before I found this music, I had to look up some of the ways you can skirt by copyright laws. So one of the other things is if you use such a small portion that the what makes the content like its true self, then you're fine if you avoid what makes the content like its true self. I think a good example.
Sampling is okay.
Yeah, sampling is sometimes okay, but for example, I'm trying to think of a song that has like a very iconic sound, like "Come Together" from the Beatles. That like shoom doodle doodle doodle, that could be like a 10 like a 5 or 10 second clip, but that could still be copyrighted because that part of the song is so integral to what the song really is.
Yeah, I mean the famous example is Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby.
Ding 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 ding. Yeah, an extra bass note
from Queen.
Under pressure.
Yeah. So anyway, there is some stuff to worry about with fair use, and I think this game is totally fine. I think this game has appropriately used fair use because, one, it's not portraying anyone seriously. It has almost...
It is not slander.
Yeah, it does not slander. It is not harming the image of anyone in the game.
Yeah, and it doesn't infringe on Charles Barkley's ability to make money, which is a key one.
Yeah. It's not competing in any of his industry.
Yeah.
And so I think we skirt by here. But it does open a door for discussion on what else we can do if we are game lovers and want to create cool content, what we can do. Because, I don't know, maybe somebody really, really wants to have some fighting game where all the presidents fight, but, maybe you can't use their likenesses anymore. Maybe you can't do,
Stop blowing up my spot.
That'd be a sweet fighting game. I would play that.
I've been thinking about this game for like the last 10 years.
Nobody.
I think Abe Lincoln's a wrestler, right? He's a grappler. He's the Zangief.
He's going to be the Zangief character.
I thought that Andrew Jackson, because he was shot so many times, could like pull a bullet out of himself and then shoot it at you like a fireball.
He was shot so many times he would rattle when he walked.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
He's a messed up guy. Old Hickory.
He was. I forgot who was the duel he fought. He fought a duel with another guy, and the other guy was a way better shot than him. So Andrew Jackson let the guy shoot him. It didn't kill him. Then he lined up the shot and shot the dude in the head.
Oh, God.
Andrew Jackson was a badass.
Not a great president.
Not a great president by any means, but
a badass
individual.
Oh, yeah. So I've definitely been thinking about which president, what they would do in a ring.
Roosevelt would be in there. Teddy.
George Washington, he'd be the Ryu, right? He'd throw fireballs. He'd do
original.
A hurricane kick.
Teddy Roosevelt was a boxer and he knew judo.
That's true.
He would be the Dudley.
Yep. You could his cousin, FDR.
Yeah,
cousin.
Like that.
Yeah, his cousin could be some sort of gimmick character. He could have some weirdness, but yes. Getting back onto topic.
What would you do with William Henry Harrison?
Jesus.
Did he just die immediately?
He died
He has
in
one
30
health?
days.
He has one health.
Because he gave his coronation speech in the middle of winter without it's not a coronation. His
coronation speech.
Whatever the hell.
Inauguration?
In his inauguration speech in the middle of winter without a jacket, and he got pneumonia.
Yep. I mean, Taft, he could be Rufus.
Yeah.
From Street Fighter 4.
So he's a Rekacon character.
Yes, he rolls at people. There's a whole bunch of weird presidential minutia you could throw in there.
Yeah, man, this would be sweet.
Fuck this game.
I want George Washington's fireball to be him taking out his wooden teeth and throwing it at you. So it's like Cody's knife.
They weren't really wood. They were ivory.
Whatever. Are we even talking about Barkley anymore? Jesus Christ.
I mean, I feel like this is a thing that could have been in that game somehow.
I got on presidential fact tangents. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think the only thing I wanted to say is I love the final boss. I love that you fight an evil Charles Barkley. The spoilers, Billy. The final boss is Shadow Charles Barkley,
and it has multiple stages, as it must.
As it must. The first stage is Charles Barkley with a one wing, like Sephiroth.
Great.
He's got the angel wing.
Great.
He's dunking.
Then he becomes a T-Rex.
Then he becomes a T-Rex with horns. It's his head photoshopped onto a dinosaur body.
Perfect.
And that kind of touched me because I once wrote a blog on the Houston Rockets and how they are using cheese tactics in the NBA.
Cheese tact? What are cheese?
You know how like campers in
someone
like
who's
online
like
shooter,
playing Call of Duty who just like lays down and snipes.
Okay.
and just snipes and just stays in the same place the whole time, and they keep racking up kills, and you're like, this is fucking bullshit. Play the game right.
Yeah.
You're just getting kills because you're fucking cheating.
Yeah, it makes sense.
If I'm doing something and it's unfair, you should find a way to deal with it.
That's a cheese
that
tactic.
kind of nonsense.
Yeah,
That's a cheese
that
tactic.
fits the Rockets.
I thought it was appropriate, and at the end of it, I photoshopped Charles Barkley's head onto a magic card called Old Fogey, which is a dinosaur with a cane. It's a dinosaur with a cane.
Gino, you have to be in the top 0.1% for this game.
So I was saying,
there couldn't possibly be a better audience.
No, and I like it, but not that much.
We need to get into some closing thoughts. We've been talking about this fucking game for an hour and a half now.
We could just keep throwing out basketball facts for probably another half hour if you want to.
I'm gonna go to sleep.
Sean Bradley once had his bicycle stolen.
Really?
Yeah. What do you do with a bicycle for a 7'6" man?
That's a great question. Michael Jordan
He got it back,
basically
though.
ruined Muggsy Bogues' career
Really?
by trash talking him so mercilessly during one playoff game because Muggsy Bogues thought they were friends and just teared him apart. His game was never the same.
Aw. That's not so fun. Billy, are you trying to look up a basketball fact so you can be included?
No. I'm trying to just go to sleep.
Okay. On that note, with Billy waving the white basketball flag.
Look, the last thing I want to say about this game, and then I have just nothing else to say, is probably this. I stopped playing the game because I didn't like three things about it. I didn't like that it didn't do really anything particularly impressive in the JRPG realm. It just sort of copy-pasted a lot of things that I'd already seen before. I didn't get any of the basketball references, and it kind of offended me with its insensitive like character status effects and stuff like that was really insensitive and pretty offensive to a lot of people. So I said, I quit this game. I don't want to play it anymore. But in defense of the developers, they're probably making a game that just they thought was funny. And they might have said, you know what, I'm pretty sure no one's going to play this game, but me and my friends think these jokes are cool. They probably had no intention of making this game fit for a global or national audience. So in some sense, they aren't responsible for how their consumer feels. And this is probably going to be a controversial stance that I'm taking. Like, if I'm making a video game and I don't anticipate it being ever national or anything like that, I'm just going to make a game that I like and that I think is funny, that I think is good. And these devs did that. They made a game that just they wanted to make, that they thought was funny, that they thought had good mechanics, and more power to them. You know, I didn't like it. I was kind of turned off by a lot of things in this game, but that's because the game wasn't made for me.
How much? Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but how much cultural resonance has this game assumed?
Greater than 0?
Okay, so more than you'd expect then.
Yes.
Okay.
Greater than 0. I've heard of it before, and I think we definitely saw some cosplayers at PAX. I'm almost 90% certain.
I know we saw Cyberdwarf.
Yes, we did see a Cyberdwarf.
Yeah,
so, yes, there you go.
Yeah.
We saw a person who liked this game so much that they made basketball skin for themselves.
That's pretty good resonance.
And yeah, I think, Billy, I agree. We don't necessarily critique graffiti artists because, hey, they're just kind of doing it for themselves, and what they're doing is illegal anyway.
Yeah.
They're not exactly trying to appeal to you. They're doing it for them.
Yeah.
This is digital graffiti.
I guess I'll segue into my own final thoughts. I think, most of Billy's criticisms are spot on. It's tempting to say, like in the Bill Cosby reference, that the game just sort of didn't age well. But I don't think there was an age when any of these jokes would have been not in poor taste, let's say. But I'm a huge basketball fan, and I liked the basketball jokes. And so, with setting aside those deeply reprehensible moments, the rest of the game I liked and I enjoyed.
All right. So, Pete,
yes.
You're up.
Okay. So, keeping on the tradition of games I feel like I sort of missed out on the first time around, I wanted to go back and play the first Mirror's Edge game. It was one I was very excited about when sort of it first got mentioned, but I never quite got around to it, right? And the sequel just came out June 6th or 7th last week. So now's a good time to sort of revisit the first one, the original.
As with Lara Croft.
I started Mirror's Edge, and I was like, this game's so good, but I just have so much on my plate. It's like I put it down, and I was like, I'll come back to it one day. And now you've given me a really good reason to come back and play this game.
Yeah,
I played the demo a whole lot. I like the demo.
And since this fucking Barkley game left a shit taste in my mouth, I will enjoy playing an actual good game.
I think we should just start all our podcasts now with like 15 minutes of just basketball talk.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm going to quit the podcast now, and you'll never hear me again. All right, later.
Thank you. And if you want to get in touch with the podcast and apply for Billy's vacant chair, you can go ahead and tweet at DeepListensPod, DeepListensPodcast@gmail.com, or DeepListens.Libsyn.com. We are currently auditioning. We need, you must be, about 6 feet tall, preferably, 50% gray hair.
Yep.
And if you meet those qualifications, you can be Billy.
Those are our only two.
That's it. And if you could rattle off like a rough description of the game, so I don't have to, that'd be ideal. I only have so much water from my throat.
And be the editor and
Yeah, that too.
content polisher.
I just assume you'd still be doing that because it
Yeah,
doesn't
out of
require
dedication.
basketball knowledge.
All right, so till next time, thank you, Billy.
Fuck you guys.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. I enjoyed this one.
Till next time, everyone. Peace.